Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing today? October the 20th. Baby, we fixing to get into November. October the 20th, 2022. Y'all get up, shake, rattle, and hum. Let's get into that kitchen and rattle those pots and pans. Get you a cup of coffee. We're in 1 Peter again, chapter 5 this morning. 1 Peter chapter 5. So y'all get your Bible and get you a cup of coffee and come and join us right here. Let me get myself dialed in here where I'm supposed to be. Good to see all of y'all. Here we go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing right here? Here we go. Hey, Brenda, Faye, Des, Sonny, Nick, Anita, Autumn, good morning. Chris Miller cheering everybody on. Good morning. He got that easy bus to drive. Hey, Elaine. Hey, Al. Good morning, man. What's going up there in Hoosierville? What's up, Gary Skipper? Alexa, good morning. Good morning, Brandy. Good morning. Hey, Greg. Hey, Tina. Everybody good? Hey, Gail. Want to tell everyone, if you missed our revival services, our camp meeting services the past 4 days, they are up on the YouTube, Vimeo. None of y'all go watch there. That's what I'm filming on right now. Facebook. You really owe it to yourself to listen to some of those sermons, and we want to thank God for all the preachers who came and shared with us. And hey, Zach, hey, Eric, and shared. Thank them and their families for coming and participating. The area churches that visited, the Genesis Bible Training Center, and the Kingdom Home for Men. Those men came and visited each night, and we're grateful for that. To all the ones who labored, who kept the nursery, volunteered, thank y'all for that. All the greeters and parkers and all the people that just showed up to worship, all of our singers, we're grateful for that. And thank y'all. Hey, Jim. Hey, Mary Joyce. Hey, Ashton. Is the bearded one up? Hey, Loretta. Hey, Randy Ramsey. All right, here we go. Getting ready to get started here. Hey, Heather. It was, wasn't it, Kim? Hey, Nikki. Toast to the Morning Word crowd. God bless you and God bless America. Thank you for joining us. We are in 1 Peter chapter 5. 1 Peter chapter 5. So while you turn there, I want to give a shout out to our school teachers, to our first responders, police officers, military personnel. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Okay. The morning word is pride's pitfall. Pride's pitfall. Now, if I were to ask you, are you a prideful person? You would say no. And that is a prideful statement. We all have it. We all have it in various degrees, and we have to constantly and hopefully consistently fight it. We have to, because one of the things that he says in the book of Proverbs that he hates, besides one who sows discord among the brethren. I like to throw that one out there because there's a lot of those. It says a proud look, an arrogant, proud look. Now, I don't know exactly what that looks like. I guess I've seen it at some things before, but in some instances, maybe with regards to athletics or competition. But God says that he can see an arrogant or a prideful look. I am assuming that it is something to do with the heart, since that is the place of origin for human pride. It is the part of the remnant Adamic nature that has not yet been perfected in us. And if you say, well, I don't have any remnant Adamic nature, then I guess that if you are perfectly filled with the Holy Spirit and you have nothing but a good heart, that your pride just finds itself rooted in Jesus. Now, if that doesn't fit, you're going to have to come to some other kind of conclusion, but that's the only two places. It's either rooted in Jesus or it's rooted in you. And I'm going to go on and answer that for you. It's rooted in you, and it's rooted in me, and it rears its ugly head on a daily basis without us even knowing it. That is the nature of pride. So let's look at this now at the end of 1 Peter. Peter's kind of closing his book book down, and he's been writing to people who are believers, who have been under intense persecution, and he's kind of writing them this final little segment here of exhortation and about how to conduct their lives in this chaotic and painful and hurtful world that we live in. Now, he tells us in chapter 5, the first 4 verses, he tells the elders of the church to shepherd the church of God, being examples to them. Don't do it for ill-gotten gain. Don't do it because you have to. Do it because you want to, so forth and so on. Then he comes down in verse 5 and he says, likewise, you younger people. We'll get to that in just a minute. Likewise, you younger people, submit yourselves to your elders. Now we're getting to where now we're putting some pieces to the puzzle together. Okay? Submit yourselves to your elders. Yes, all of you be submissive to one another, and be clothed with humility, for God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Now, we see a couple of things here. First of all, he tells older people, the elders of the church, to shepherd with grace, not out of compulsion, not out of ill-gotten gain, and as being examples, not lording over the people. Then he says, likewise, you younger people, submit yourselves to your elders. Now, why would he have to say that? Well, because youthfulness, our youth, tends to make us prideful, or let me say this, doesn't make us prideful. Prideful is more visibly at work in younger people in their unwillingness to submit to their elders. If you've ever raised a teenager, I've raised 2, I'm raising my 3rd, I got a 4th one coming. Jesus help us. You know what? And here's what we say. See, you think you know something. You think you're smart, and that you don't think your parent or your teacher or your preacher or your Sunday school or your youth worker, or the police, you don't think they can tell you anything because you know it all. See, pride is visibly at work in youth, and we can see it now, okay? But we can't see it in ourselves. It says, submit yourselves to your elders. Now, submission is something that comes from the inside of the person that's submitting. It's not coercion. So submission means I bring myself, okay, under someone else. That means that for me in my own mind to go from here and put myself under someone else that I may consider here, something has to happen before that will happen. Okay, something has to happen inside of me. And what is that? I have to humble myself. That's to bring yourself low. And when you do that, the resistance to that is called pride. The resistance to humility is pride. The resistance to submission is pride. And he's telling them in these last days, and particularly under oppression of the world, and for Christians now, the oppression of the world and its persecution of us, God says in order to navigate that, what you need to do is begin to put yourself in the right order, because the devil thrives in chaos. Remember, in anything that's out of order. Well, you say, Pastor Randy, I struggle doing that. That's exactly right. So the point where you begin, before you can submit to others, we're talking biblically now, you have to first, verse 6, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God. So we have to submit our pride, our will to God. James said it this way, submit to God and resist the devil and he will flee. He didn't say resist the devil and he will flee. You must first submit to God. You must first yield your will, which is rooted in your pride. James went on and told them in his epistle, he said, all wars and arguments are rooted in human pride. All wars and arguments are rooted in human pride. Now, just look around you. All right? Look around you and see where there is chaos, disorder, arguments, wars, and you're going to see human pride at work. That's all it is. So he's saying here, he says, listen, guys, what you need to do is you need to humble yourselves before the Lord and then humble yourselves to one another. Now, why? Because he tells us earlier that the devil is like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. Who is he going to devour? First and foremost, who's he going to hone in on? The one who is out of order and the one who's walking in human pride. The one that is not submissive to God, not submissive to others, and walking in human pride. That's going to be the one that gets sifted. Now, it's not ironic that Peter is the one who's teaching this, because Peter is the one, he was the loudmouth, the boisterous, the prideful, hardtail, fight in a second. You know, man, I see so much of me in Peter. He was just feisty. Peter was a bull in a china shop. And he was the inner circle of the inner circle. Remember, he was in the 3 of the 12. He was on the inside of the insiders. And when Jesus said, y'all are going to all walk away from him, Peter said, won't be me. It ain't going to be me. He said, oh yeah, you're going to, he said, all of y'all are going to depart me. He said, not me. He said, if I have to, I'll die for you. Jesus looked at him and said, man, before the rooster crows this morning, you're going to deny me 3 times. Okay? So the reason Peter took the greatest hit, and Jesus said this. This will get into another teaching, but I'm just going to mention. I'm not going to talk about it right now. Jesus said, Peter, Satan has desired to sift you. In other words, that roaring lion, he has asked for permission to take you to school. And he said, I prayed for you that your faith don't fail. Now notice what Jesus didn't say. He said, I didn't say he couldn't do it. I said he could do it. But I prayed for you that your faith wouldn't fail. Well, the reason the enemy was attacking Peter was he thought he could get him to deny Christ and defect from the faith. Well, Peter did deny Christ, but he didn't defect from the faith. So what the enemy meant to destroy Peter, God used to make Peter stronger. So Peter takes his lesson here, okay? He's the only one that had to go to school on pride. And after he got back from the school of pride, which is called the Valley of Oh No, he turned around and wrote this epistle, and he goes, you guys need to submit to the Lord and submit to one another, because the enemy is out to eat your lunch and pop the sack, and the person that he's going to hone in on, the one he's going to target, is the person that's out of order and walking in human pride. Now, I reposted a thing on Facebook. You can go to my page and see it. And it's a picture of a campfire kind of horizon silhouette kind of thing, and it says ego is the enemy of all progress. Well, it doesn't say it like that. It says ego is the enemy of getting better. Why? Because you're not going to put any effort in learning that which you already know. Okay? You're not going to put any effort in learning that which you already think you know. I'm going to say it again. You're not going to put any effort in that which you think you already know. Now, I'm going to pause right here. I'm just going to share something with you. Now, it's going to get on some folks' toes. When your church has revival, and you don't show up, it's because you think you don't need revival. It's because you think, I'm good. God despises an arrogant look. Now, I'm not being legalistic about you got to come, and if you don't come, you're a prideful person. All I'm saying is that pride You cannot see your own pride. You can't see it. You just have to know it's there. And you have to break it. If I ask you, were you greedy? You say, no, but I know some people. And if I were to ask them, the people that you think are greedy, are you greedy? Here's what they would say, no, but I know some people who are. Now, isn't that funny? That everybody knows someone that's greedy, but it's not them. Here's what you need to know. You're greedy. You just got to know it's there. And the way that you break it is to be a giver intentionally. That's the only way you break greed, is to give. And you just do it. You just break it. And so you have pride. To say that you don't is a prideful statement. And the only way you can break it, where's all them little emojis? Where's all them little thumbs up and hearts over here? The only way you can break it is to bring it underneath the hand of God. To bring yourself into submission. It says humble yourself. Now, here's something that we do need to take into consideration. We can humble ourselves and we can break human pride, or we can allow human pride to break us, but something's going to break. Something's going to break. Someone's going to break. I wonder why Peter had to go to pride school. Just things to think about sometime. And to know that we have an enemy that's seeking whom he may devour, whom he may steal from, kill, and destroy. Human pride. Let me tell you the way human pride has manifested itself in our country and around the world, really. It's wokeness. That's what we call it, woke. Woke. And that is that it's an intense focus upon the individual himself, thinking that he is deserving of something and that he knows something that no one else knows. And so therefore it's his job to wake you up and inform you and to tell you that the reason that I'm like this is because of white supremacy. That I deserve something. 40 acres and a mule. That all of human government is tainted by white human pride. White male pride. I mean, and I'm just using that for an example. So therefore, everyone else owes me something. Whoa. It's human pride turned inside out. I may just stay here for a minute. I can feel the tension in the air. Human pride. God says, clothe yourself with humility. How do I do that? How do I clothe myself with humility? It says right here, it says, and be clothed with humility. Now that's a euphemism, meaning like you take off your pajamas, which is pride, and you put on humility, which is your work clothes, right? So something has to come off in order for something to come on. Okay? So here's how we clothe ourselves with humility. This is the starting point. Are you ready? God said so. Boom. That's the giving. God says you and I have a pride problem. Now, if you argue with him, you're proving his point. So we must just go on and confess it. God is right and I'm wrong. God knows something about me that I don't even realize about myself. I have a human pride problem. So here's what I got to do. I got to break it. I break it by submitting it to God. In other words, I bring my pride and arrogance under his mighty hand. Here's the way Paul told it to the Romans. He said, don't think more highly of yourself than you ought to. So we could go to Job's school classroom and take a seat and listen to the questions that God asked Job and see if we can answer them. Job had it figured out. Well, he didn't have it figured out, but he knew that he hadn't done anything wrong, and so and life was coming up, was turning out bad for him, and so he had some questions for God. God never answered Job's questions, but he did ask Job some questions. And he told Job, he said, when I get finished with you here in class, you go set them 3 knuckle-headed friends that think they know something, set them straight. And he started asking Job some questions. He said, Job, where do I store the snow? To what did I fasten the anchors of the world on? How do I keep the sea from coming forward any further up on the beach? He said, who hung those stars in the sky, Job, and do you know the name of them? Each one of them has a name. In other words, you ain't as smart as you think you are. And even when you think you got God figured out, you ain't even started. You hadn't learned the first thing, and that is this. You aren't equipped to figure God out. So even starting on that is stupid. You ain't got, like the guy said, arguing about creation. I can create something. God said, go ahead. He said, well, give me some dirt. And he said, get your own dirt. How about that? We don't know anything. We don't know anything until we know that God knows everything. We don't know anything about ourselves until we understand that we are incapable of anything without God's help. I'm talking about even lost people. Lost people exist by the will of God. They exist by the will of God. He created them by his own will. Okay? So, God is in charge. God is sovereign. God has all wisdom, all power, all might, all authority. He's ever present in every place, all time, forever, eternity, no beginning, no end. Now, where does that leave me and you? So we need to humble ourselves right here. We need to say, God, like Jason said last night in his message, okay? When you get to the place where you don't know what's going on, and trust me, you don't know what's going on. You just say, God, I trust you. God, I'm going to follow you. To the best of my ability, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to trust you. When you say humble myself, I'm going to humble myself. This verse is not for other people. This verse is for me. So when I read, clothe yourself with humility, he's not telling me that so I can go tell my wife that. He's not telling me that so I can go tell my child that. He's telling me that so that I can do it, because I'm the one who has a human pride problem. Not just some days, every day. Not just later, now. It's the inner part that kicks against authority. It kicks against instruction. It kicks against submission. And it is the barrier to growing in our faith. And we have to break it on a daily, and here's how we break it. Submitting to God. Here's what this, it's just said another way. It says, if we walk in the Spirit, we will not fulfill the lust of our flesh. The lust of our flesh is human pride. Thinking that you have these desires, and, it's like they used to say back in the day, said, God created me like I am. If I got a great sexual desire, he wants me to fulfill it. Yeah, but he's got a way to do that. Okay? So human pride kicks against instruction. It kicks against authority. It kicks against it like you're kicking right now. Some people are already tuned out and say, I ain't listening to that big-headed joke. That's just pride. But that's okay. You don't have to listen to me, and I'm preaching to myself. If you don't want to listen to the Word of God, I promise you, human pride is going to take a hit. And I'm going to point you to the place and time where all human pride will be broken. Do you know it's in the Bible? There is a place and time. God has already pointed to it. God has already told us what that moment is going to look like. It says every knee will bow, of those in heaven, of those on earth, and of those under the earth. And every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. And I'm telling you that Putin is going to say that. Xi Jinping is going to say that. Zelensky, Donald Trump is going to say that. The Pope is going to say that. I'm going to say that. And you're going to say that. And the devil is going to say that. Jesus Christ is Lord. Pride's pitfall is when we think that we are not prideful. And when we come under that assumption or make that presumption, presumption, when we come to that conclusion, when we make that presumption that we are not prideful people, we have already started sliding down the hill to the pit. Pride's pitfall. To avoid pride's pitfall, we must acknowledge that we are prideful people and then break that pride by submitting ourselves to God and then to the other authorities in our life so that we do not become sitting ducks for the sifting of the wicked one who's roaming to and fro seeking whom he may devour.